Welcome to Quick Bites, a video series brought to you by the Washington Hospitality Association, highlighting changes coming to the Washington State Food Code on March 1st, 2022. Today's video is sponsored by Harbor Food Service. Harbor Food Service is thankful for every opportunity to keep our industry moving forward. For other supportive resources, visit harborfoodservice.com, where we believe that life happens around the table. And now, here to discuss changes related to refillable reusables is Susan Shelton from the Washington State Department of Health.
Great, thank you, Andy. Very excited for our next quick bite. This one's all going to be about refillable reusables. We have quite a few options that might be something that are of interest to you. So there are three options that you have for refilling returnables. And what those mean, containers that the customer takes home, they take away, and then they bring back. So those are refillable returnables. So again, you have three options. The first one is going to be that the food establishment actually provides the container. Then they're going to potentially wash and rinse and sanitize that container. And so there are no additional restrictions on the customer. Another option that we have is that a consumer can actually have beverageware, so glassware, so maybe a cup that they can have refilled. And that can also be done relatively easily. And then the third option is under an approved plan. This is the biggest change that Washington made to the food rule. So we'll cover that again in a moment. Let's go over the first one. The first one is a container that is given to the consumer, and then the consumer returns it. And it's actually going to be sent back to a food processing plant that is going to be washed and refilled at the food processing plant. So we have a few providers that do this now, where they will take the container back and then it goes into like a little kiosk. It's not stored inside the kitchen, and then it gets returned to the food processing plant and is washed, rinsed and sanitized, and then refilled there. So again, this is not something that the food establishment do. The restaurant would not do this. It's another partner altogether that would do that. So that's one option. Another option is going to be that you have a take-home container that you, as your food establishment, actually provides to the customer. So maybe it's a multi-use, a reusable container that you give to the customer on the salad bar, and then they take that food home, they return the container back to you, you wash, rinse, and sanitize it, and then you can have additional people reuse that container. Another option that we have is if a customer brings in a cup, they want to have it refilled. And so they're going to maybe go up to your fountain drink machine. Maybe they're going to bring it up to get additional, maybe some water. They can do that on their own. What's required there is that it's their container. It's only used for them. And then there's no contamination. So there isn't a spoon that goes inside of it, that is then used for other customers as well. It can be refilled by both the employee and the customer, again, as long as it's contamination free. So that one's very specific for drinkware, for beverages. You can also refill a consumer-owned container, such as maybe an ice or something that comes out of an ice chute. Maybe you have a milk dispenser that has milk inside of this big container, and then it comes down just through a fountain type system, and they can refill that way because, again, you're not able to contaminate the actual bulk supply of the food. Another option that we have is you might have a water vending machine. You'll see this particularly in grocery stores where people can go fill their own container. There is no restrictions on whatever consumer-owned container they bring to the water vending machine. So that's not something that your employees need to wash, rinse, and sanitize. A customer can use any container that they would like at a water vending machine. The next one is going to be the biggest change that we made in Washington State. And this one is going to require an approved plan. And the approved plan is going to have to be something that is reviewed by the local health department and actually approved. It's not something that you can just roll out. You would actually need to apply to the local health department. This is going to be, if you want to go above and beyond those options that we just talked about, you actually want to have customers bring their own containers in. So in this case, maybe you have containers that the customers own. So maybe it's their own personal actual container. If it's something that you want to do, it's an option, and you have an approved plan for it, then you can have them bring those containers in. Your safest option is going to be for refilling with what we call non-ready to eat. So this is going to be maybe your raw produce. Maybe you have pasta, dry pasta, things like that. That's going to have the least risk of contamination. And so that might be something that you want to offer for your customers. The next one is going to be refilling with ready to eat. So something like that would be like a granola. Granola is ready to eat. Maybe you have customers that want to do that from your bulk food. It's going to have to be in what we call the chute system, again, so that you can't contaminate all the food that's actually bulk. It's not going to be like something in a scoop kind of system, right? It's going to be something that is actually gravity fed, because again, it's ready to eat. It's not going to go through any kind of a cook or wash. And so you want to make sure it stays as clean as possible. So if you have customers bringing their own container, it'd be in like a gravity flow system. And then the last option that we have with this one is you could have a food employee actually refill a container. And again, this is going to be something that's going to require quite a bit of training, and it's going to require that approved plan. Because in general, a food employee should not be handling a container from a customer unless you have an approved plan and a safe way to do that. So again, so that it's a contamination-free process that doesn't go back and contaminate the food on the serving line or in the kitchen. So again, this last option is really going to be specific for groups that want to allow additional options for customers. It's going to require that you have a written plan. It's going to require that that plan is also approved. And know that we'll be looking at it to make sure you can control the risks for your customers, your employees, and also the bulk amounts of food that are still inside your facility. So again, our key options, we're trying to make sure we can reduce as much waste as possible, but while keeping the food as safe as we're required to do. So if you want to start allowing customers to bring containers back and refill them, know that we have quite a few options that you can do now where you're allowing them to refill a beverage in a contamination-free environment. Then you can also go above and beyond and go a little bit further, but only if you can control all the potential risks and have that approved plan as well.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel for all the latest news and updates impacting the hospitality industry.